EB-02 meta tier list prediction. It's an interesting topic because it will be only 1 month format until we receive the starter decks and OP11. And it should be unique for the West because we are the only region to have pure EB-02 with the bans included. I prepared some interesting leaders to talk about today. We are not going to talk about all the leaders in the game. I point out the ones that might be seen in the meta or received some buffs in EB-02. So let's move to the tier list. So EB-02 is the set that is completely released to introduce the new leader, green purple Luffy, and he receives a lot of support obviously, and apparently I think that he will be in the S tier for the simple reason that the leader's effect is really disgusting when we combine it with one new card that is Sanji and Pudding, and on top of that there is enough support in the set and also from the previous sets to make this leader very, very oppressive. Obviously there are some matchups that have slight advantage over green purple Luffy, but I believe that the top players will either play green purple Luffy to dominate the field or will pick one of so-called counter picks to try and fight the meta. And normally when we have such complex deck as a top tier pick, players are looking for some easy solutions, and here comes Shanks. So Shanks is also interesting, and also I will put him directly in the S tier. Deck is interesting because what we saw in the West already, you can build it in many different versions. We saw the Straw Hat version, Rush version, Control Shanks, Animal Shanks, and many other experimentations, hybrids, and so on. But I think for the EB-02, Control Shanks might be the best choice, simply because it allows us to fight green purple Luffy. So we have one complex deck and one deck that should be the counter pick that plays clearly on curve. There is really simplified decision making in Shanks, so it's easy to learn. You should be able to fight green purple Luffy without much trouble. And then we have two decks already in S tier, and we already know that Shanks was very popular pick in OP10. And here comes the third possibility for the meta picks. We have either the top tier deck that should be green purple Luffy, we have the counter pick, and we also have counter pick of the counter pick that will be Blackbeard. Very interesting mechanic, pretty unique in the One Piece card game, with the negation of the on-play effects and so-called counter to the Shanks. So in a sense we could expect the triangle meta. Is it going to end up like that on the top tables? We need to wait and see. Maybe because it's just 1 month of the meta, we can see something more spicy, but I think that top players that like to top the events and win will pick either of those three the most. And then we will have the case of green purple Luffy being on the top and beating Teach, Shanks beating Luffy, and Blackbeard keeping Shanks in check. This is my theory for the start of the S tier. Then, as you can see, I have two interesting decks with recently banned cards. We have Black Lucci and Blue Doflamingo. I refer to them as cockroach tier because even though they lost a lot of power, they still remain really strong and really interesting. Even in EB-02 meta, I think that we are actually okay to put Lucci in A tier. We already saw some solutions that Lucci can fight green purple Luffy. That is expected to be the most played deck as a flavor of the month, and I believe that he can really develop for the A tier. Even though I despise this deck as a Zoro player, I think that Lucci is a good pick going into the tournaments, hence I put him into the A tier. And for Doflamingo, However, I think that just because we expect green-purple Luffy on the top, that we need to move Doffy down a bit and keep him in the B tier. Even though he's still the powerful deck, if our expectation is green-purple Luffy, I would put him in the B tier. If we expect wider range of the decks, then maybe we can move him tier up or at least a half. But for now, let's place him in B tier. And then I have classic 5 life leaders. I think 5 life leaders have advantage in this environment as opposed to 4 life leaders. So the next easy, so to say, pick is Purple Luffy. And Purple Luffy for me is a deck like Shanks that is easy to pick up, easy to play. You just need to see your curve, even better if you can win a dice roll. But I think that Purple Luffy is in a waiting room for OP11. However, it's still strong enough in my eyes that we can put it in the A tier. Easy to pilot decks allow you to focus more on decision making on the actual board, what to attack, when to counter, instead of thinking which card to play. So this is huge advantage for Purple Luffy, for Shanks. On curve decks, if you are a new player, you want to compete in EB-02, but maybe you cannot afford or just can't learn the green-purple Luffy piloting, then for sure pick either Shanks or Purple Luffy. I think Purple Luffy could be even in tier between S and A if there would be any, or at the end of the S tier if needed. But we need to wait and see if Purple Luffy develops in the tournaments. And then we have Bonnie, the classic pick for any green deck player. I put her immediately in A tier because in my opinion Bonnie is another counter to green-purple Luffy, like Lucci. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two decks get some representation, some higher representation, especially in Europe, and to see them topping the event. Nothing really spicy printed for Bonnie except for a 7-cost Bonnie, but as I said in my different video, I think Hoddy Jones is still a better card to pick. Nonetheless, classic deck, people have already a lot of experience and comfort with Bonnie, so it might be a good time to put the deck to work if you don't want to play, for example, green-purple Luffy, but to counter him. And then Enel got interesting buffs. One of the cards is 5-cost Sanji Blocker, and another card is the boss monster, 10-cost Enel. And even though we have Raigoban, or known in English as Kingdom Come, I still think that Enel can put up some work. But for now, I will put him in B tier. I don't think it's enough of the buffs, especially with the Kingdom Come ban, to put him in A tier. I think the Teach matchup is not so playable exactly because of the Raigo ban. Even with the new Enel, it might be not enough. So I think the overall power level is still lower than with Raigo, but before the release of the new 2 cards for Enel. Then I have picked some 4 life leaders that are interesting to play for sure in this meta, even though, like I said, 4 life leaders not so hot in this meta, in my opinion. But anyway, I still think that Lim can find a way to be played. Really strong, fundamental deck, especially if you can win the dice roll, but I'm not sure how can Lim compete against green-purple Luffy, even though I saw some early results of some sim tournaments that Lim was able to stand against green-purple Luffy. And just because I don't have much experience with the deck for now, I will put Lim at the end of the A tier as one of the primer decks from OP-010, and let's see how Lim will perform. For sure, strong pick if you already have experience with the deck, as only one new matchup to learn. And then we have Smoker, and Smoker is actually really sneaky pick because Smoker plays 8-cost kit, and the green-purple Luffy is not so good into the 8-cost kit decks. That's why Bonnie is so high as well, because of this one card. But also at the same time, I don't think that Smoker will be so hot simply because of the limitation of 4 life leader. So I would keep Smoker for now in the B tier. It's still a very strong deck, especially if you see your curve. But I don't think that this is the deck that can cover all the matchups that we see above. We are taking risk playing the Smoker into this field. But nonetheless, if you're an experienced Smoker player, I can see you topping the event. And I have the same opinion for Reiju, even though Reiju is a very cool pick since the release, the transformation mechanic and everything. I think just because it's the 4 life leader and some of the matchups might be annoying, let's keep Reiju in the B tier. And here I would also place the Usopp, same reasoning. We saw a little bit of Usopp, some Saka Usopp and other variations in the West, but I don't find this deck that interesting, especially when we have such a top picks like Green Purple Luffy, Red Shanks and the Black Teach. I can't see fit for Usopp in this meta. Maybe I don't know something about this leader, but until I'm proven wrong in EB-02, I can't seem to find the reason to play him. And also 4 life leader. Then we have Red Purple Luffy. I know that we like this deck a lot in the West. We have some good chefs cooking with this pick. For the time being, I can't really understand how can we fight with the top playing the Red Purple Luffy. So if there is something I'm missing, please let me know in the comments. I understand the premise of 6000 power leader. Okay, we should be good on paper into Shanks because we are swinging 6k every time, asking always for 1 card, no free leader's effect activation. The same goes for Luffy, even if Luffy buffs himself up into 6000 power, still we have the free swing. But I can't seem to see how can we match the value of those two decks. So unless there is some spicy list that I'm missing, I would put Red Purple Luffy as first deck in the C tier or at the end of the B tier at most. But for me, I don't see this deck topping. And then I have some decks that received the buffs in EB-02 that I already spoke in my other video of top 10 cards from this set. And one of the most interesting decks that got buffed is actually Vegapunk. I didn't speak in my video about card that Vegapunk received. It's very interesting blocker with the same name. And we can really build a wall with Vegapunk. And I think if you like to pick something spicy for your tournaments, Vegapunk from all the leaders that received any buffs is the best pick here. And actually, even if it's a little bit controversial, I would put him at the end of A tier. I'm pretty sure that committed players of the Vegapunk, we will see at least one of them in any top, regardless of the region, if it's Europe or NA, doesn't matter. I think this deck might catch a lot of people by surprise, especially that we need to consider that it's really short meta, EB-02. So if you know something, if you are a good deck builder, you bring something spicy, you can catch opponents off guard, and based on that, because all the matches are played best of 1 until top cut, you can climb really high, and the deck power really is high with the current setup. I think the other strong pick due to the buffs is Odin for sure, and Odin I would place in the B tier overall, I think that a lot of decks, especially the 4-life leaders, match into this bit here, that overall they are strong, they have good power level. But then you have decks that are above, that are either very easy to play, especially if they see their curve, so you save time thinking about other things than which card to play, or even if they are complex, the power level is unmatched. Like, perfectly piloted green-purple Luffy is so disgusting. It's like combination of playing Whitebeard and red-purple Low back in a day. Like, put those two decks together and this is my feeling about the deck. Maybe not so broken like red-purple Low that we didn't get to experience with Black Maria, but like on the base level, Whitebeard, red-purple Low, and then we have green-purple Luffy in a sense. So this is my comparison. If you have such a high power level deck, you cannot put Odin higher than the beat here, and this is true for all those leaders. Even though we know Smoker can have the good matchup into the green-purple Luffy if they are able to make the setup. But if you can't, there are situations that green-purple Luffy will just force through your 8-cost kit or whatever. So yeah, just be mindful that the deck might seem strong. A lot of decks seem strong on paper, but in my opinion, once you face the player that really puts the time and experience into green-purple Luffy, all those picks stop looking so spicy or so hot. And the same goes for Smoker. Smoker, very cool black leader, something different than Lucci, but here comes the comparison. Smoker received, after the Moria ban, the new 7-cost Sakazuki. I like the card a lot, but my problem is I don't feel that Smoker will be that good. For sure not A tier, because in A tier we have Lucci. Lucci is the true removal black deck. In S tier we have Teach as a black deck that has his own mechanic and high value cards, like Kuzan for example. And even though Smoker is very cool to play, we can play Tashigi on curve, we have other cool cards, and now even the 7-cost Sengoku, I think that maximal what we can do with Smoker is to put him also in the B tier. So even though we have those small buffs, I don't think this is something that you can break through the B tier up. Next we have Iceberg. Iceberg also received small buff in EB-02, but I still think that the deck is not that good, so it will be the first pick to put into D tier despite the buff, until I'm proven wrong that the cards are good to play with the leader that cannot attack into the Luffy that plays Luna and can freeze your whole board. I'm not sure. If you are Iceberg fan, let me know if you have any solution for this top tier deck, and then we can change the tier for Iceberg. And the next pick is something that I was considering for some time as a Zoro player, and this is red-green Chopper. Chopper received 2 or even 3 interesting cards, depends how you look at that. And the deck is really cool. The idea is very fun to just form the deck with your choppers, animals, whatever, and then attach the don to them and push. But my problem with chopper is that you really need to high roll, so similar to Zoro, but also is 4-life leader, so this is my problem, that as long as we have Zoro in a meta, as long as Zoro doesn't rotate out, until they print something really broken in green color, there is no point to risk playing with Chopper, simply due to 4-life. So until I'm proven wrong, I would put Chopper in the C tier. I think this is the deck that you can win locals for sure. Catch people by surprise, swarm the board, catch them with the event, and so on, and push, sure. But when you start playing with the more competitive environment, I think you will get outvalued by any of those top decks. Then we have purple black Luffy, also interesting leader, also some cool cards that we play. In green purple Luffy we can play the purple portion of them in the purple black one, but I think that this leader is waiting room for the new starter decks. So for now I would put him in the C tier, but maybe at the top of the C tier, and once we receive the starter decks, then for sure he will skyrocket higher. And the last of the buffed decks is Zoro and Sanji, and for Zoro and Sanji I think that really spicy pick is the new Vivi. I don't know, maybe I am coping. Even though the deck itself didn't really achieve anything great, I think, until now. I think slowly we can see with more green and blue support, we can see some interesting deck choices, and I think that people don't really know how to play against this deck, especially when it high rolls. They might be missing some fundamentals concept or get catch off guard, and for that reason I would still put it higher than Iceberg. With Iceberg you cannot surprise anyone, but I think Zoro and Sanji have a potential. But just because the card Vivi is okay, but it's not like something game breaking, so I cannot put the leader higher than D if we didn't see the results yet, because even if in my mind leader seems strong, like I said, on paper anything is strong. If you see your ideal curve, you might think, okay, this deck is godlike. But unfortunately, it's not always the case, and the reality is that then you face one of the top 3, or even any of A tier decks, and apparently you fall short with your base power. And lastly, I have 2 decks. Let's speak about Nami first. For me, Nami and in the past enel were always the gatekeepers, especially for the new players, because they require you to think about the game on a different scale, especially Nami. And Nami really punishes new metas, in my opinion. I think when you have a new meta, there are 2 picks that punish especially the players that are maybe not yet so experienced, because a lot of players will try to pick something new to play. And because of that, they might not consider that even though they can counter something on paper, then the Nami will just farm them, because maybe they will go for too much value but too slow on the board, or some other concepts that are missing in the deck, even though on paper they should counter the meta itself. And for that reason, I think that Nami is forever B tier gatekeeper. So when you play any deck that you want to play on the higher level, like regional, then I think you need to make sure that you can beat a random Nami, like a benchmark to check. If not with deck power alone, then with your strong game understanding how to play against this deck. And I think if you are Nami main, you can actually catch a lot of people off guard in the upcoming regionals. And lastly, we have my pick, that's why I left it as a last one. It's Zoro, and here, don't get me wrong, I love Zoro. I put a lot of time and effort to play this deck, even when the meta is not so favorite for him. But if I would be playing any regional level tournament, I would not pick Zoro most likely, unless I crack some list or I see some better lines into some of those decks, especially in Europe, because we love the cat guy, we love Lucci, so playing Zoro is really tough. On my last regionals in Germany, I faced 2 Luccis in first 2 rounds, so it was a slaughter, even though I did my best. Or maybe I'm missing some knowledge about the matchup, might be also the case. Nonetheless, Zoro has a good factor of high rolling, but even if we high roll, if we play against more experienced opponent, then we might see some trouble, especially with the top decks looking like that. On paper, we should be good into Shanks. On paper, depending on the build, we should be either slightly favored into the Blackbeard, but if Blackbeard has experience, if they play 4-cost Shiryu and they understand the matchup, then it might be unwinnable unless they brick. And into green-purple Luffy, I would say that we are slightly unfavored. We need to run Morgan to make this matchup 50-50 in my opinion. Because then we have a clear answer into the Sanji Pudding play. If we don't play Morgan, then we need to develop blocker chopper just in case to clear them, but then it might be too late. So the plus is that we can chip green purple Luffy with our attacks, especially before they rise up the power with the effect. But on the other hand, even that we play Zoro, we might be simply too slow, and they can stabilize, especially that most of the list run Luna. They can also fight us back and so on. So this is not so straightforward. I'm still practicing some matchups from the list, especially green purple Luffy, and this is not so easy in my opinion. So for sure I'm not putting Zoro in A tier. I don't think this is the pick for the regionals unless you get a good matchups. Simple as that. And for this reason I will put it into the B. I think you can easily pick it for locals. This is what I plan to do. Just chill at locals. I don't have any EB-02 tournament, so I can put time and effort into Zoro. And then we need to wait and see what starter decks will bring. Sure, we have good matchup against upcoming blue purple Luffy, but this is also not so straightforward, and in the West we need to wait and see what the starter decks will bring, as we will be also the first region receiving them for the OP11. And here you have it. This is my short tier list for EB-02. I think any other decks that anyone will play might really catch someone off guard on the regional level tournament, because the meta is quite wide open, as long as you can cover those three big matchups like green purple Luffy, red Shanks and black Teach. Other than that, I think we will see A tier decks topping for sure, and occasionally one of the B tier decks going into the top cut. But now it's your turn. I'm interested. How do you feel about the meta? Do you have some spicy pick? Do you agree or disagree with my picks? Let me know in the comments. They are open for the discussion. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.